How's everyone today? My name is William A. Thomas, here with a quick video in regards to some comments that were recently made by Dr. Umar Johnson. But before we actually get started, just pause this video, click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell on the right, as well as the like button, because you don't want to miss any of the upcoming videos where we actually discuss things such as culture, politics, business, but more importantly, the business of how these different things relate to you. Because if you're the one who's in your own business, then it gives you the better chance to be able to handle business. So with that, I'm assuming that right now you have unpaused the video. Let's get started. So Dr. Umar Johnson, most of you guys know him as the Prince of Pan-Africanism. He's also a clinical psychologist and a certified school psychologist who actually works with African-American children dealing with behavior issues and special studies. So with that, I respect the brother. I like a lot of what he says, but there are some things that I disagree about. Recently in this video, he was actually giving some conflation of the ideas of gangster rap and the Black Church being tools of white supremacy. So in that video, he talked about how the gangster rap actually teaches glorification of bad behavior, materialization, and self-hate, while at the same time saying that the Black Church is pretty much teaching how to love your enemies and wait for heaven to be able to get your paradise. So whenever someone actually goes and says something like that, including me, I think that it's always good to go to the source. How can you go to the source in regards to gangster rap? You can actually look at the lyrics. If it's saying, I want to kill you, and it's most likely about another person, then yes, it's safe to say that this is music that is promoting violence. Most of the time, most of those artists don't actually participate in such violence. And sometimes that violence actually finds those artists. Unfortunate to say. On the other end, as far as the material things, let's be honest. Most of those artists, from a business standpoint, are not in the black, they're in the red. Now, sometimes you can be in a situation where your credit makes it to look like you're in the positive. You can be able to have nice things, but usually those things are on their loans. I can actually shoot a video, I can rent some chains, I can actually rent a place. I can actually, if I wanted to, I could go in front of a place and act like it was my house that's not even rented or paid for and probably get chased off the property. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of materialization that you see in those videos is somewhat fake. So it gives a glorification towards that. So I agree with Dr. Umar on that. In regards to objectifying and mistreating women, once again, we can go to the lyrics. What does it say about it? Some of the rappers, some of the gangster rappers do think those things, whether we're calling women hoes or the B word or whatever it is. And the sad thing is it's actually switched over to a thing where now, because of the gangster rap that's happened in the past, it's actually tipped over to the female rappers who are using pretty much what the male rappers have been using for years. But we're not going to get too much into that at this time. Now, let's juxtapose this with the other side of what Dr. Umar was talking about, which is the Black Church. Now, here's the thing. Me, myself, being a Christian, having studied my faith, I know that there's really no such thing as a Black Church or the Black Church. There may be a church that's filled with black believers or a black pastor or something of the sort. But the term Black Church, of course, is usually based off of who's gathering there. So to say that the Black Church is a tool for white supremacy, we would have to, look at the facts of what's been going on. Now, admittedly so, there was a time, especially during the transatlantic slave trade, where certain things in the Bible were actually being used to kind of pacify the slaves. That's absolutely true. But here's the thing that's missing. In fact, it's really the story of what's missing. A lot of those slaves were not introduced to the full Bible or the full text of Christianity because of that very fear that by them having knowledge of the Christian faith in full, they would actually probably turn on their masters, because the Bible ends up saying things about how it's unjust to be able to sell another man, or the Bible says things about let my people go, or the Bible talks about we are all equal, in Christ. So those type of things don't kind of fit well with the narrative of what people like Dr. Umar Johnson are saying. And I sit there and wonder sometimes, because he's an educated man, if he is either willfully ignorant or whether he is more so apathetic. And a lot of times I think that it's more so that a lot of people are apathetic to the truth because of their own volitional will towards what they want. So that's fine. You're not going to change on a lot of people. But I think that it's not safe to be able to say that a whole faith is a tool of white supremacy when that's not necessarily the truth. So whenever I was watching that video, also I heard Dr. Umar, do another thing where he had labeled who all the coons are. People from Jesse Lee Peterson to Tim Scott to Kamala Harris to Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. All of those people are coons. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that there's a point where Dr. Umar is talking about people who are coming at him because they don't believe in his political beliefs. But it's ironic that he's actually doing the same thing in regards to these people because they have different political beliefs than himself. So are all the coons, bad guys because of their difference in political beliefs or economic beliefs, or are they bad guys because they actually are bad guys? So I don't know the answer to that. That's something we'll delve into later. But when we look at how, when someone says that these two things, the Black Church and Gangsta Rap, which this was atrocious, because Dr. Umar Johnson had said in this video that which one is actually affecting the black community as a weapon of white supremacy greater. And he said he's going to have to give that edge to the Black Church, because the Black Church affects the minds of the young and old. And the Gangsta Rap more so affects the minds, what he said was the old. I think that he meant to say the young. I don't know. I would have to ask him about that. But either way, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Because let's look at the bad possibilities that could go on in the Black Church. And when I say the Black Church, I'm just talking about the part of the body of the church, the body of of Christians, because that's who he's talking about. By the church, he's talking about Christian believers. Let's talk about that portion that is predominantly filled with black members and or a black pastor. So, is there the possibility that there's a church that is teaching, just let everything, fly, don't do anything. The white man is, supreme over everything? Yes, that's a possibility. Let's name some other things that he didn't actually go into, but I'm just going to put them out there. Not only do I want to, talk about the good of it, but I want to talk about the bad that actually happens with different entities. I don't want to just get on the gangster rap only. So yes, in some churches, they do actually take the money and not give back to the community. How would you define giving back to the community? Some people would probably say, building recreation centers, programs for children, affordable housing, whatever that looks like to you. Some would say, business courses, financial literacy. I don't know how that looks to you, but that's what was basically said. Other ways are that, there may be situations where the pastor, same situation, maybe there's not as much giving back to the community. They may see the pastor making some money, which I can't fault that, Because in my experience, a lot of times when the pastors are making that type of money, it's actually come from outside pursuits. So if that is the case, no problem at all with that. If there's a church that is thriving, that is, you know, basically paying the pastor some sort of salary, I don't have any problem with that. If because a lot of times the pastor, that may be their only job, and they may be dedicating their time, their resources, and their energy to be able to care for this church. So there's all sorts of different scenarios, but look, I'm not oblivious to the good, bad, and the ugly of the church, or if we want to say the black church, which once again, it still doesn't make sense to really say that. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll actually do that. So here's the thing. If you are a Christian and you happen to be black and you're at a church that you feel is exploiting the poor, the neighborhood, or whatever, it is incumbent upon you to address that directly with that church's leadership, whether it's the elder, the deacon, the pastor, whoever. And from there, if they don't listen, then you always have the option and the opportunity to go somewhere else. But I will say that in my experience, a lot of churches that I've attended, as well as the one where I'm a member, I have not necessarily experienced that. On to the juxtaposition with gangster rap. Gangster rap, on the other hand, there have been studies that have proven that listening to gangster rap is related to, at the least, additional aggression. If anyone actually, has those studies, you can actually cite them in the comments. I'll actually, look for a few and cite them in the comments. But that additional aggression may or may not lead to killing, may or may not lead to fighting, may or not lead to stealing, may or may not lead to selling drugs. It's always the possibility, but it actually does help. Just think about this. When you were younger as a child, how did you learn the 26 letters of the alphabet? They went and sang that A, B, C, in the way I can't sing, so I'm not going to actually do it right now. But sing to yourself. Whatever the case, they taught a complicated song like that to 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, to where they were able to memorize the 26 letters of the alphabet just through a song. So what do you think a complex song about killing people, getting these hoes, getting this money, whether illegally or legally, those type of things. What do you think that's going to do to the mind of someone, whether they're old or young? Because here's the thing. The young, they're usually in the developmental stages of their brain. The frontal lobe is not developed in young people until a certain age usually. And maybe consequences may not be a big thing. So the young are generally targeted with this music. And they have to keep a constant flow of young rappers going in and out to be able to make it effective. The young people aren't listening to your futures. Most of the young people probably aren't even listening to Drake. Most of the young people, and don't give me the line, I can't name most of these, new rappers because they rotate. They start off and they're in the phase where they're influencing the 12 to 21 year olds. And then once they get older, they move to the next phase, or more so, I think that those kids, they move along with them. And then you have the new rappers that keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And the game, the industry, see, we want to talk about white supremacy, right? We want to talk about white supremacy. I believe that the music industry, the gangsta rap industry, is one of, if not the primary tool of white supremacy. That's the real white supremacy that's affecting black households. Yeah, sure, everyone may listen to that music, but everyone's not in the same position as black people. So if we're really going to start talking about something, why would you compare the group that says, okay, yeah, on one end, they say to love your enemies. In fact, why would you even compare that? To love your enemies with, shoot them up? It's not congruent at all, because at least in the process of loving your enemies, you had the ability to live, and during that time of living, you had the ability to be able to put together plans to where, even though you may be showing love to your enemies, if your enemies are mistreating you or using you or trying to take over you, you can be able to put plans in place to be able to overtake, to move forward, to grow. So when someone says that the church is teaching you to love your enemies, you need to also consider that the church says heap kindness upon your enemies because you're hitting them with lumps of coal. Sometimes that coal is the coal where you're making them feel bad for treating you bad, but sometimes that coal is that implanted coal to where you're actually covertly, without them knowing, growing. You're covertly getting rid of the bad lumps, while in the meanwhile you keep the good lumps and you keep on squeezing those, and they may become diamonds. So we have to watch out in regards to this, because here's the thing that Dr. Umar Johnson has in common with the Black Church, as well as some of the gangster rappers. All three of them have their own set of preachers. Yes, there are street preachers. Yes, there are Pan-Africanist preachers. Yes, there are church preachers. And a preacher gets a message out to be able to lead the masses. So is his message one that's of truth, or is it one that is self-serving? Because last time I heard, I haven't seen the evidence in regards to whether Mama Oshun is real or not. Not to knock anyone who has that belief, but when you constantly come at a group of people's beliefs without being able to add facts to the validity of what you're saying, it brings questionability to what you're saying. So the way that you apply this in life is when you hear anyone saying anything, whether that's me, Dr. Umar Johnson, your local preacher, your local gangster rapper, or whoever, what you do is you do research, you go to the source, you ask questions, you be skeptical sometimes, and the truth, it'll find you if you're really looking for it. So with that, that's just some brief food for thought, and I'll let you do the dishes. Like and subscribe to this video, and I'll see you next time.